Hello everyone and welcome to another video from Cole's Tech Shed. Well, for those of you who follow me on Facebook, you'll know that unfortunately just before Christmas my Kindle decided to stop working. This is it here. As you can see, it's completely unresponsive. There's no LED when I power it on, and it doesn't take a charge either. It's not the battery, because I've tried replacing that and it made no difference whatsoever. So it's obviously something to do with the power management which has stopped working. So unfortunately that's completely and utterly dead now. So what I did was, instead of purchasing a whole new Kindle, I decided to buy this one on eBay, which is fully functional but the screen's broken. So I thought I'd do a teardown and a repair video here. Now what I've done is I've just taken the back off of both of these, but on the one which I'm going to be, on the board which is going to be scrapped, I've taken all of the cans off so you can see what's on the board. As you can see here, we've got a Freescale IMX35 processor here. So this handles the this connects into the display controller, also handles the memory, the RAM and the Wi-Fi and everything else. We've got 256 megs of RAM here. We've got 4 GB SanDisk flash memory chip here. We've got a small Epson e-ink processor here. This is interesting because this IMX35 processor doesn't actually have a graphics processor on board to keep the cost down. So obviously in something like this you certainly don't need any extensive graphics processing, but because the e-ink display is very different to an LCD in that it just refreshes the screen every so many seconds. Whenever you turn the page or you want to refresh the screen, it will just send a single burst of data to the screen, and the e-ink technology retains that image on the screen even though the power's off. So that's what that IC does here. The connection between the main processor and the graphics controller, this actually, I think it's a 12-bit parallel interface, but it's definitely a parallel interface because both of these, when I looked at the data sheets, both of these have parallel interfaces. This one specifically noted a 12-bit parallel interface. But this one also mentioned general purpose interface and also mentioned JTAG, but I can see here that the JTAG configuration ports are just down here. You can see we've got some small pads on the PCB for JTAG, and all the JTAG points are marked out here. So you've got a 12-bit parallel interface between here and here. Down here we've got a small power management IC. As you can see, there's a lot of SMD capacitors, several diodes, and a few very small MOSFETs around here. We've got an Aforos Wi-Fi controller. This goes up to 54 megabits a second. This is actually connected by USB over to the main CPU controller here. Over here we've got the analog to digital converter. Again, I think this is connected over USB to the main processor. What this does, you might find this unusual on a Kindle to find an audio device, but this is actually for audio books, and if you've got a later edition of the Kindle or you've got the updated firmware, you can actually listen to MP3s through this. Obviously the interface is very unusual in that you have to hold certain keys on the keyboard to skip tracks and such, but I mean the sound quality wasn't too bad when I used it once, so that's what that does there. As you can see, there's a large capacitor here. There's quite a large capacitor, especially for SMD. I'm not sure of the actual size of it, but if you compare that to the other smaller capacitors around it, that's quite a large capacitor there. So that's obviously for the audio output. On the bottom here we've just got a few small tactile switches. We've got a small LED over here which is for the power and charging indication. We've got a USB connector here which is a micro USB. This just goes directly into the processor here, and that's also how it charges, because the power would also branch off into the power management controller where it's then sent over to this other device which I'll talk about in a moment to charge the battery. Now just over here, this is a rather interesting little connector. I mean, the connector itself isn't interesting, but when I popped this off, you can actually see there's a small IC, sorry, just under here. At first I wasn't sure what this was before I looked at the data sheet. As you can see, there's only 8 pins on this device. At first I thought that perhaps it was a MOSFET or a small capacitor bank or something like that, because I wasn't sure how much power the e-ink display required to change the display. But when I actually looked it up, it's a 2 megabit serial memory IC, so I'm not quite sure what that's for. I can imagine it's most likely for storing the image directly onto the chip, and then it will write it onto the e-ink display in its own time. Most likely there's a separate e-ink display controller further down, so the processor on the Kindle would directly write the image page, which is to be displayed, directly into the serial flash module, and then the e-ink controller on the display would read directly from there and then throw it up onto the display. I could be wrong, but that's possibly how it could be done. I've never actually taken one of these apart before, so it's quite a surprise to see that. Now over here is this other device. This again is a user interface controller. This controls the keyboard, the LEDs, and just about anything else which is connected to the Kindle, for example. You've also got a small speaker at the top. Over here, this is for audiobook playback. So that would be connected to here, but I can imagine any beeps or anything that would be directly sent from the from this controller here. Now obviously both of these are the 3G edition of the Kindle, so you're able to download books via WhisperNet. So this obviously has a SIM card built in, which allows it to connect up to the Vodafone network. Now here we have a Pci Express Slot, which has a 3G module which is plugged into it. You see we've got a small aerial connector here and a small coax connector just here. This is like a very small clip-in coax connector. We've got the IMEI number, we've got the model number here, which is DTP600W. Now I can imagine if you put this into any other device, you would definitely have trouble trying to connect this up to the internet, because the SIM card is managed separately. Whereas if the SIM card were to plug into here, or this had a SIM card built into it, chances are with the correct software you'd be able to connect this into a laptop and have a 3G connection through a laptop or a netbook. But with the SIM card sitting outside of it, it'd probably be very difficult to get that to work at all. You may register it on the network, but in order to access anything you'd need an external SIM card module, but the way this has been designed, I think it'd be very difficult to do that. Now the SIM card's quite interesting because it's actually unbranded in that there's no specification on the SIM card as to what network it's registered on. But if I just unclip this, you'll see here the SIM card is completely blank. These actually, here in the UK, the Amazon Kindle 3G, these actually connect up to the internet on the Vodafone network. So unfortunately, when these came out, you had unlimited 3G connection to download books and such. You can also surf the internet using the limited interface on the e-ink display, but recently Amazon, well, I say recently, I think it was about a year ago, Amazon announced that they were going to put a cap of 50 megabytes of browsing on each of the Kindle units, because obviously nobody pays a monthly subscription for this, so Amazon are paying the networks for the bandwidth that these machines use. So because they don't charge a monthly fee, that comes off of their bottom line. Obviously they try and recoup a lot of that from the sale and commission of ebooks, but if people are leeching off of this and just connecting this up to their laptops and such, which was a big problem because people were downloading firmware via the JTAG connector onto the memory IC, which was allowing them to tether their laptops to this by using the 3G dongle, effectively using the Kindle as a 3G dongle by spreading the 3G signal via Wi-Fi. So they just use this like a wireless router. And obviously Amazon probably weren't too happy with that, because it was costing them a lot of money having that, having all those people using all that data and no revenue coming in from the sale of ebooks. Now over here we've got a small connector. This just goes down onto the keyboard, which I'll take apart when I replace the screen. Now this is quite interesting. If you look at the side of this, when the case is on, you can actually see there's two small holes on the side. Now this is just for clipping the case in, so it can hold the case in place, and then you can fold it over. But if you look at this top one, it's simply a piece of plastic. But on this bottom one, and there's a series of metallic pins. You've got several gold-plated pins here. So I'm guessing this is some sort of configuration for Amazon when they first send these Kindles out, because when you buy them directly from Amazon, they link up the Kindle to your account. So if you purchase any ebooks, you can download them directly onto your device. So I'm guessing that when these leave the factory, or when they leave the Amazon warehouse, they have like a proprietary connector where they can plug this into a system which would configure the device specifically for the customer. It looks like there's only about four, possibly 6 pins down here. It could be USB, it could be serial, could be TTL, could be JTAG, could be any number of interfaces. I'm not really sure what they're doing with that. It isn't mentioned in any manual, and nobody's mentioned it online. And because it's in such an accessible place, yet it's also hidden, I'm guessing that's going to be for initial configuration before it leaves the Amazon depot. Now you may also notice here that this battery is incredibly different to the one in the Kindle I've just purchased to salvage the board out of, and the reason for that is because a few months ago when this originally died, I thought perhaps the battery had burnt out, so I replaced the battery and it still didn't work. So I'm obviously going to keep this battery as a spare, but when I put this all back together I will be using the genuine Amazon battery, just for any reason that perhaps this battery may have caused any problems. I can't see how it has, but just to be on the safe side I'm going to use the genuine Amazon battery. One other thing, just before I did this video, I snipped away at all of these little pieces of metal here just so I could see what the part numbers were. But these little pieces of metal, these just act as a Faraday cage, because when you pop these cans over, it just provides a little bit more physical support underneath, because obviously there's quite a large area there and it's very thin metal, so there were several pieces of metal just spread across here just to give it a bit more rigidity. But also another thing I'd like to mention is that the battery connector on these is incredibly good. Usually you'd expect something like this to have a small cable or a flex PCB or something, but no, these connectors, they're actually screwed in place, and then there's just 4 gold pins, and then they make contact with the battery under here. So you can imagine if you've got this in a bag, or if you've got it in a bag or a pocket and it's moving around all day, you're not going to have a cable which is having any stress put on it. It's a physical connection which cannot move. So I mean that's a really good design feature on there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take most of the parts out of here. I'm just going to swap the e-ink displays over, and hopefully we can get a working Kindle out of these two. Right, well, as you can see, the screen replacement in my Kindle was successful. I've just got the Kindle on charge now at the moment because the battery is quite low. As I mentioned earlier, I was going to replace the battery with the genuine Amazon Kindle battery, which is what I've done, and that's why the battery was completely depleted. One interesting little thing I found on the back of the back panel on the Kindle, this little bit here, when you open it up, there's a small device down here. Now, I wasn't sure what this was at first. I thought it was just a sticker, but when I look closely, there's actually a very tiny silicon chip right in the middle there. It's probably, I don't know, 0.5 millimeters square. It's absolutely tiny. It looks to me like it's some sort of NFC chip. I'm not sure what it's for. It could be for it could be like a unique serial number of each device, maybe for registration. Before it leaves Amazon's warehouse. I'm really not sure. I've looked this up online. I can't find any mention of NFC chips being inside the Kindle 3. But it's not an NFC reader. It's just an NFC tag, similar to what you have in an Oyster card or a contactless payment card. So it's obviously got just a very small amount of data, probably 16 or 32 bits of data. I've tried to read it using my Samsung Galaxy Note 3, using an NFC reading app, but it's not even detecting it as an NFC chip. So I'm not sure what frequency it's running on. It's got some letters here which are UPM. I don't know if that's the manufacturer. I'll be perfectly honest, I haven't even looked this up yet. But it's also got some numbers next to it which are 253_1. So I'm not. I'll have to look that up at some point, and if I find any information on it, I'll post it on the in the comments or in the description. But overall, it was quite a success. It was, well, I mean, obviously it was a success because the Kindle's now working. As you can see, it says that it's Stephen's Kindle. Well, it's no longer Stephen's Kindle, it's now mine, because this is obviously the main board which was in the Kindle which I bought on eBay, belonged to someone else previously, so it's got all their books and everything on it. So I'll restore that to factory settings once the battery's charged up, and then I'll be able to download all my books from Amazon onto it again. The only thing I would say was that removing the e-ink display from the plastic was incredibly fiddly and quite nerve-wracking at times, because it's only held in with adhesive tape which runs all around the edge here. The adhesive tape is only about 2 or 3 millimeters wide, but it's incredibly strong for its size, and trying to remove that from the plastic, obviously you've got a very delicate e-ink display here, and after seeing the reverse of the screen I replaced from the Kindle I bought on eBay, as you can see, it's suffered quite a fair bit of damage on there, and the last thing I wanted was to break my screen, so I then had 2 dead Kindles, one with a broken screen and one with a broken screen and a dead mainboard. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to avoid. But the sticky adhesive tape around the edge was very fiddly. That's probably the most annoying part of the whole process, because you have to be so careful. You have to peel the plastic away from the LCD, the e-ink display very carefully. As I mentioned earlier down here, this small 2 megabit flash I see here, the small serial flash chip. As I mentioned earlier, I was speculating as to whether the data would directly be read from that and then displayed on the screen. And as you can see, there's 3 small IC controllers here. These are sort of potted in this jelly style potting compound, which is it feels sticky to the touch, but it doesn't leave any residue. It's quite rubbery. As you can see, there's these 3 semiconductor devices here. For driving the e-ink display. The reason I thought that perhaps this was some sort of capacitor or MOSFET at the time was because if you've ever used a Kindle, when you refresh the screen or change a page, the entire screen goes black for a second, and then it goes onto the page you wanted, so it completely clears the screen, and then it displays what you actually want. So I wasn't sure how much power that was going to draw, or how long that would, or what sort of power you would need to store. So obviously you've got 6 SMD capacitors here on the Flex PCB, so they're probably managing that. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the image is probably held in here, because this is 2 megabits, which is 256 kilobytes, which is more than enough to hold a raw image file just for the e-ink display, and then the e-ink controller would flip the entire display to display black, and then it will reload with the new page directly from the memory IC. But as you can see, I've got quite a few spare parts left over. I'm not really sure what I'll do with these. These might end up on eBay, or I might just sling them in my spares box. As you can see, there's the 3G module. I really don't know whether this would be of any use outside of a Kindle, whether you could install this in anything else, because you don't have the SIM card module built in. It has an external SIM card module, as I mentioned earlier. There's a spare rubbery keyboard here. I've got a pile of screws here. The main board here, which as I explained earlier was dead, I might experiment with that, maybe take a few of the components off if I can make use of them, or simply keep it as a spare in case, for example, I snap off the USB, not that I'm intending to, but just by accident, if I break any of the connectors, I could always just salvage them off of this and then resolder them onto there. This SIM card here, I might actually have a look at this and see if I can get it to run in an old Nokia I've got in a box somewhere, and just see if I can get any form of signal, whether it's available, whether it's able to access the internet or anything like that. I mean, it's quite possible that it could be IMEI locked to the 3G device, or it could have packet sniffing, where it would only allow Kindle data through this. I'm really not sure. Obviously the SIM card wouldn't have that capability, but the network that it's configured onto, they may have packet sniffing software at the exchange to check what sort of data is being sent through the network via this SIM card. So that's one possibility. I mean, I'm sort of split on that. I'm really not sure whether Amazon would do that. I mean, it's quite possible, and it's quite a good preventative measure to prevent people from just buying these in bulk and taking the SIM cards out and using them purely for their data. But on the other hand, is it really something Amazon would do, or would they really, or would they just want to get these into devices and then just shut them down if they become abused? I don't know. I'll have to try that. As I said, I've got a few other spare bits. I've got this spare plastic here, which was originally on my Kindle, which had the faulty board. The only reason I swapped it out was because purely cosmetic. There was purely a little bit of cosmetic damage here, where a little bit of plastic had snapped a while ago when I was removing a case from it. So I thought, while I'm changing all of this out, I might as well swap that out as well, so we can get the Kindle in the best possible condition for what I can do right now with the parts I've got. And last but not least, I've got this little metal piece here. I originally thought this was plastic, but it feels like some sort of magnesium alloy, because it's very lightweight. It almost feels lighter, it's as light as plastic, but it's got that sort of metallic feel to it. It's quite cold to the touch for just a moment, but also it's got a certain springiness about it. So I'm pretty sure that's some sort of magnesium alloy, which is quite common in things like this to give it a bit more rigidity. And up here you've just got the 3G antenna, the speakers, and a few other little bits and pieces. But yeah, I mean, overall it was a relatively easy task. It was just a little bit nerve-wracking when I was trying to remove that e-ink display because of how fragile they are, and obviously I could see that this one was damaged, and I didn't want the same thing to happen to my one. Well, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll be able to get this Kindle up and running in a minute, and I can start using it again. And thanks for watching. I'll have another video up very soon.